As you know, many of us have so much stress in our lives, whether it's a little bit or it's a lot. So can stress be a trigger for migraines as well?
Absolutely. Stress can be a good thing and a bad thing. We all need a little stress in our lives. Unfortunately, we oftentimes have a lot of stress in our lives. And so we need to recognize how stress affects us. And there are lots of things that women can do to help minimize stress. And one of the first things you can do, a simple kind of thing, is to take a little bit of time for yourself each day.
Which is a tough thing for many women to do.
Women just don't do that, and because we're always taking care of somebody else.
Always.
So it's really a good thing to, whether it's taking a walk, listening to music, baking, whatever it is that you enjoy for a little bit of time each day, do that for yourself, because actually by taking time for yourself, you become a better parent, a better spouse, a better employee, because you may have fewer headaches, you may be happier,
Yes.
You may feel more relaxed, and so it's really a good thing to do that.
Well, it's interesting that we're talking about stress because we now have a story about a woman who really learned to control her migraines by looking at the causes of stress in her life. Let's take a look. As an account executive for a large software company in Charlotte, North Carolina, Lyda Stitchman has a stressful job. But as she has learned over time, that's not the only reason she gets headaches.
I can actually remember the very first day I had a migraine. I was in high school. I was a senior in high school, and I was on a bus trip on a school outing, and I had the most piercing headache. I couldn't even imagine what was wrong, and it was behind my left eye, and just the sound of the people on the bus and the light, I actually thought I was going to die.
No one could tell her where the attacks came from, and unlike most cases, nobody else in her family had migraines.
I thought it was my fault. I thought I must be doing something to cause the migraines, and if only I could figure out what I was doing, they would go away. But what I didn't realize was that I had migraines. I just had migraines. The answer I got was that there are medications that I could take, and I could take them when I had the migraines. But for me, early on, the things that I tried didn't work, and in fact made the migraines worse. And so as an outcome, I stopped taking the medication, and I took the approach of tough it out, right?
But the headaches kept coming, knocking her out for whole days at a time. As an active career woman, it was an untenable situation.
And I can remember several years ago having a manager say to me, well, when I have a headache, I just work anyway. But he didn't understand that with a migraine, you can't work anyway. You can't sit up. You need to be in a dark room. You need to be in bed. And oftentimes you're so nauseous that you can't be in a room with other people. So you just can't function. So for a career person, it's not a good thing.
But when Lyda had her first child, she realized that she couldn't afford to be sick so often.
You know, I didn't just miss days with migraines. I missed Christmas days. I missed Thanksgiving. I missed a birthday of my son's. I mean, when you have migraines, you don't get to pick and choose when they hit. And when they hit, you go down.
Desperate, she finally sought help from neurologist Dr. Sylvia Lucas.
The peak prevalence of migraine is 25 to 44. So most women are moms or they've got jobs. But if you can't take care of your kids and you can't go to work, then you face the risk of losing your job or having to call your husband or someone to come over and take care of the kids. So people are absolutely not able to function well. And that's the biggest reason to diagnose and treat the headaches, to get your life back.
For me, I lived in Seattle at the time, and I was very aware of changes in the barometric pressure. I also know that I'm very stress sensitive, so I can feel a headache coming on in certain stress-related situations.
Well, I think most women have heard, and I certainly am one of them, well, you've got a lot of stress in your life. Maybe you should, you can't handle your job, you can't handle your kids, you can't handle, your husband. Maybe you should get a divorce. But I think truly the psychological ramifications of being in pain and not knowing when it's going to hit can affect some women to the point where they're very frustrated, a little bit angry, a little bit depressed. And it's hard to get someone to understand what that pain is. Spouses have seen their partner's on the floor vomiting, they know they can be, really knocked out for 3 days, you might have a little more empathy. But most migraine patients I know really try to push through their pain. Whether their headache is gone or whether it's not gone, you know that you can't take time off from work every time you want to treat a headache. And every time you have a headache, you've got to get the kids to school, you've got to pick them up. So they basically push through that pain.
Like so many women, my life is full of stress, family stress, work stress, just an overfull schedule stress. And like so many women, I try to pack it all in, try to do it all, be it all. And what I found out is if my schedule is too full, if I have too much stress from too many directions, I'm much more susceptible to a migraine. And so what I've tried to do, and my doctor recommended it, was to balance what's going on in life, and if I'm too stressed at work, to try to alleviate some of the stress at home. And the other thing that I've tried to do is incorporate exercise in my life and some relaxing activities that help me mitigate some of the stress.
Today, Lyda isn't on preventative medications. She doesn't need them, but her acute medication is always at hand.
I carry my little packet of medication with me. It's always with me. I carry it the way people who are allergic to bee stings carry their medication. I'm never without it, because whenever I feel a migraine starting, if I take that medication early enough, I don't have the headache. So I'm mildly inconvenienced, and for an hour I may feel a bit like the headache would normally start, but by the end of the hour, it's my magic. I don't get sick, and I'm so grateful. I honestly feel that it's changed my life.
And today, Lyda doesn't miss any more of those special family days.
And once you lose those, you can't get those back. And I think the people around you, your family members, while they understand, it's very hurtful for them that you miss those important days. And they're days you just can't get back. So the good news is, I don't miss those days anymore.
We're back with Suzanne Simon, Executive Director of the National Headache Foundation. Now tell me, do women feel both emotionally and physically vulnerable because of migraine headaches?
They do. There is the physical side of the headache, but there's also the emotional side. A lot of women feel guilty, they feel resentful, they're angry, and they're frustrated. So it's important to recognize that those feelings are actually normal and natural because you're dealing with a healthcare issue.
And what if you're having problems at work or with coworkers? What do you recommend?
Well, talking to your boss can sometimes be a dicey situation, so you really need to understand what your work environment is. Some bosses are very supportive and understanding, and others a little less so. So you need to recognize the best way to approach it for yourself.
And what about at home? Because we know that migraine headaches can affect everybody around us.
Well, migraine is not a solitary disease. It does affect the family unit. And children in particular oftentimes feel guilty or like they've caused their mom to have a migraine. You really need to let them know that it's not their fault. So give them something that they can do to help you when you're having a migraine. It may be a chore that they can do, or they may be bringing you a cold washcloth or something to help you feel better. But help them feel part of that. Having a supportive spouse or significant other will definitely make the process a lot easier. That person understands what you're going through, and they can pick up the slack when you're down with the migraine. And just educating the family that this is a disease, that you're all in this together, and that together you'll come out of it as well.
I think that is some really great advice. Well, on that, in closing, if you have one piece of advice that you can give all of us concerning migraine headaches, what would it be?
I think people need to understand you don't have to suffer with migraine. It's a physiological disease that is treatable. So make an appointment with your healthcare provider to specifically talk about your headache problem and get on the right treatment program.
Suzanne, I want to thank you so much for being on the show today and really giving hope to the millions of women out there who suffer from migraines.
Well, thank you for having me, Chanel. This is a really important program.
I'm Chanel Hart for W The Women's Show.